Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are continuing our conversation about the future of logistics and technologies that are already changing the way the companies operate. Our topic today is particularly important because AI is moving beyond simply analyzing data and suggesting recommendations. We are entering the era where AI agents can take action, adjusting routes, prioritizing shipments, responding to some kind of disruptions, triggering workflows, and making operational decisions in real time. But this raises a very important question. Then AI agent acts. Who owns their decision? To explore this topic, I'm joined today by Wolfgang Lehmacher, our global thought leader in supply chain and logistics. Wolfgang, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, for sure. Let's start with the practical reality. There is a lot of excitement about the AI agents, but the term can sometimes sound more futuristic than it really is. In logistics, some systems are already doing much more than providing some dashboards or recommendations. They can monitor events, identify issues, and trigger actions without waiting for someone to manually review every step. Wolfgang, where AI agents are actually acting in logistics today, could you share some real examples of the decisions or workflows they are handling already?
AI is already in the control rooms of logistics, especially when we look at repetitive and data-rich decisions. Today, agents route trucks, orchestrate warehouse tasks, trigger replenishment, and even draft customs documents and push updates to customers. So the broad adoption range can already be seen today. And in many large operations, software decides which truck goes on which routes and what is to be picked in warehouses. And one example is UPS Orion system, which is a classic, because AI is acting there very practically. Orion analyzes huge volumes of route and stop data to optimize parcel delivery. We all know that delivery costs in a parcel operations can make up to 50% of total operational costs. So we are at the heart of the operations. And the system also decides which parcel goes on which truck and in what sequence. And what UPS has publicly reported is that this has led to significant mileage reductions, which saves time, fuel, emissions. So here we can see a practical example where the algorithmic agents now steer day-to-day operation.
Yeah. So this is like really interesting that you highlighted exactly like UPS, because this is like really global provider around the logistics supply chain. So I can see that for them, this is like really important to have as much automation as possible due to the volume that they're working with. And that is why it's really great to see how this is not just some kind of future concepts, that already it's operating in their Orion system and in very practical ways. Especially for them, this is like the speed, the data, and also some kind of repetitive decisions that they need to make fast. And that is why this is matter for the industry and for the UPS like the most. And moving more to the central question that we have of today's discussion, then a logistics manager makes a decision. Accountability is like usually clear, but once an AI system begins recommending, triggering, or executing some kind of actions, responsibility can become less obvious. For example, imagine an agent reroutes the shipment or deprioritizes some order or selects a carrier and something goes wrong. The system made the move, but people actually designed these rules and approved the process and decided how much of the authority to give to this AI agent. and then a system makes or triggers a decision. Who should own that decision in your view, Wolfgang?
This is very clear to me. Nothing changes. AI owns no decision. Only people and institutions do. So the responsibility sits with those people that decide and that are allocated for the oversight with respect to what a system optimizes, where it is deployed, and what it is allowed to execute. In fact, the business leader accountable for the outcome, which can be safety, service, compliance, emissions, owns the AI-driven decision. So if we look at the practical application of that logic, we only have to remind ourselves the Tesla autopilot crash in the US, because after that fatal crash or accident in Florida, investigations and litigation focused on both the driver's behavior and the company's system design and marketing. Courts and regulators examined people and corporations. The automated driving software itself was not being called to the courtroom or treated as a legal person.
Yeah. That's for sure. I totally agree with this perspective, and I can say that AI is support and actually like support the process, but they are not responsible and accountable exactly for all the outcomes. So that is why someone still needs to own the outcome, even then the system is doing part of the work in the process. And moving to the next question that I have, one of the reasons companies introduce AI agent is, of course, like the speed, and human team may not be able like review every shipment exceptions or some kind of warehouse alert or maybe like routine change in real time. But giving an agent more freedom also means that companies need some clear rules around this process and what can they do independently, and then the person needs to intervene into the process. So what does good governance look like? Then agents act faster than humans and can review every decision.
So good governance means machines can be fast, but they are never free. You map which decisions AI touches, classify them by risk, and decide where it may act alone, and it is the agent, not he or she. It may act alone, and where a human has to approve. In fact, you hardwire guardrails into the systems and the workflows. And you keep audit trails, very important, so any important decision can be reconstructed and explained. Just think about customs automation. A customs automation project that uses computer vision and hosted language models is a good illustration. The system digitizes invoices and packing lists and draft customs declaration, cutting processing times and calculation errors. It runs on local infrastructure to meet data residency and privacy requirements, and human officers reviewing higher risk cases.
Yeah.
This is an example where you combine speed and robust compliance governance. Governance in the age of agents is not a static ethic statement. It is a living control system capable of keeping up with machine speed. So it's important to define it well, but also to monitor the outcome and adjust where needed.
Totally agree. And this is like really important to have this balance. Yeah, because the goal, of course, is not to slow down the technology, but also provide the necessary approvals. And that is why there is the need to create these boundaries, these guardrails that is the governance. And that is why all these escalation rules and all the visibility should be like flexible, but still everywhere updated to the specifics of the use cases or specifics of the processes, but still it should be there. So that is why people still remain in control without being like a bottleneck for the process. So totally agree with you. And there is, I believe, like another risk that often appears. So then something becomes automated, then a decision leads to a problem. It can become easy for everyone involved in this process say the system did it. The operations team may blame the tool, the technology team may point to the business rules, and the vendor that provided the solution may say the company configured it just incorrectly. So that is why suddenly no one fully owns the decisions. So where do you see the biggest risks in responsibility gap, where everyone blames the AI and no one really owns the call?
I think you nailed it already. The gap is the biggest when you have on the one side a lot of people that gain, and on the other side nobody owns the downside and the risk.
Yeah.
This is a reflection of many things in our normal life, right? So that's where the gap is the biggest. And in logistics, where we have 3PL companies, carriers, forwarders, shippers all work together, it is very easy to understand if something works, everybody has done it. If there is a failure, nobody is responsible, right? So when you look at systems that are hacked, for example, if you have a commercial AI chat and that is targeted to use the permission of the chat to access sensitive information, customer data, right, cloud credentials, then you have a similar situation, right? You can say the machine did it. It's the commercial AI chat is responsible. No, it can never be responsible. It's so obvious, right? It can also not be only the AI team or the IT team, right? You have to allocate somebody in the company that takes ownership of this. And that person is then the one that has to go to court and has to explain what really happened. And there is also a structural global risk. Models and standards are very often developed in the global north or in the developed economies. But the problems, they occur everywhere, right? Think about transport. Can be every port in the world, can be every terminal in the world. Yeah. And if we don't allocate responsibility for failure, the one who pays the cost is the weakest actor in the chain. So for me, the question of governance and allocating responsibility is critical for fairness and also protecting those in the chain that cannot protect themselves, because we all know the chain is only as strong as the weakest actor. And if we want to continue to operate, we need to sort this out.
Understand and actually totally see the point here regarding like all this accountability part, because automation should not weaken this accountability. And in fact, the more autonomy the system has, the more clearly the company needs to define who is actually responsible for the actions of the systems, its limits and its outcomes, because this is like really important and important part. And as you mentioned regarding like the weakest actor in the chain, so this is all this, if there is this clear accountability, that is why they feel safer, they can like act more freely and use the automation, other tools as well for the process. So that is why improving the whole supply chain as well. And bringing this to the leadership level, let's see, in this direction. For many logistics CEOs, the question is no longer whether AI agents will become part of the operations. The real question is how to introduce them responsibly, without slowing down the innovation or exposing companies to some kind of unnecessary risks. And this is not just like the technical decision. It touches also operations, compliance, customer relationships, and even company culture. So that is why, Wolfgang, if you were advising a global logistics CEO tomorrow, what 3 decisions about AI ownership would you insist they make now?
It's a good question to summarize what we got so far. So I would ask any logistics CEO to make 3 decisions. First, who in the organization or in your organization owns AI risk? Second, where can AI only advise and where may it execute? And 3, what governance do you demand from partners and technology vendors? Because AI doesn't stop at company borders or walls. If you are explicit on control, boundaries, and partnerships, AI becomes a governed capability and not a convenient scapegoat. When we look into practice, how this is executed, if you are implementing an AI-driven solution to optimize routes, it's important that the company defines the objectives, understands the risks, and defines risk thresholds, and it defines monitoring roles before activating the automation.
Of course.
And only then the management should give the green light when they have done their homework. And this also means that the whole implementation of AI is in fact a leadership challenge and not a technical exercise. So you need to deal with your own people, with the fears. You need to deal with potential risks. You need to be clear that at the end, the CEO takes all responsibility.
Yes.
So the leadership should be involved, aware, and take or at least support the decisions taken. So if a CEO is aware and gets decisions right, AI is not any longer a digital brain. It becomes that, what I mentioned before, governed capability. Powerful and fast, but always operating within the framework, the limits of human accountability.
Totally agree with you, Wolfgang. So this is like a really strong framework of like a really strong 3 points that you highlighted, that the CEO should think first, organize first internally in a company before like doing any automation in their processes, before like the company actually goes into AI automation of AI operations across the company to scale. Let's say for some certain market, they need to be clear about the ownership that you mentioned, decision boundaries, and what happens so then something goes wrong. So all this should be the one that is responsible. And of course, that is why it's much easier to define all those rules early than try to fix these kind of gaps after the agent has already made some kind of high impact decision. So that is why, as you mentioned, everything should be done beforehand, and only after this they should do the automation. So Wolfgang, thank you very much for sharing your insights today. This was really like fascinating conversation, because AI agents are not only like changing how the logistics decisions are made, they are also forcing companies to rethink accountability, governance, and the role of human judgments in their companies, because this is something that at certain point, not all of them pay attention to this. And with the AI automation, they first of all need to think about all these directions in the beginning. So that is why the future of logistics is not only like giving AI more autonomy, but it's also making sure that the system become faster, smarter, but responsibility still remain clear. And that is why, to our listeners, if you enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who is exploring how AI changing the logistics and supply chain operations. Thank you for listening.